Hello and welcome to another episode of the Portrait Profits Show. Man, I am so glad you are here with us today on this beautiful Monday afternoon. We have something fun and exciting and for many eye-opening to share today about the pricing of prints and the pricing of what it is that you do and what it's based on and what to think about in order to make it happen to have the perfect price list for your photography business. Well, before we get into that, I want to bring in Amanda from Digital Pro Lab. Hey, Amanda.
Hi, Jim. How are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. Good weekend. How was your weekend?
Ah, it was fantastic. Relaxing and fun. Got things done. Couldn't have been better.
Awesome. That's great. Well, I'm excited for today. I know pricing is always a hot topic for a lot of our customers that come in, a lot of the people that I talk to. The big question is, how much am I supposed to charge? And their immediate go-to is, do I just multiply the price of the product that I'm purchasing from you by a certain number? There's a lot of ways to do it, but I'm always excited to hear what you have to say. And I've obviously heard multiple times your method, and I agree with it, and I also teach it. So I'm excited for other people to hear it and learn it.
Love it. Yeah, there's definitely more than one way to get to do this kind of thing. Um, I, I I'm going to mention it in just a moment, but one of my mentors when I first began, I was a student still in college getting my photography degree, and there was a photographer that I looked up to, and I asked him about pricing. How do I price what I do? And he said, multiply whatever the lab charges by 5. Well, I found out later it's not as simple as that. There's a lot more to it than that simple. And he's a fantastic guy. He's still a full-time photographer. And if you were to see his studio, you'd be extremely impressed because he has really done well for himself. He's not here in San Antonio. But I do still keep up with him and occasionally still ask him questions about how to make things happen because yeah, we have people we need to look up to, and we use them as mentors, and we ask them questions. So, and I guess I'll be bringing you back on afterwards to talk about a product or a promo code or something.
A little
So
bit of
you
everything.
awesome. So you guys have some good stuff to look forward to in just a little while. Well, thank you, Amanda, and we'll see you shortly.
All right, Jim.
So, this is so much fun doing these shows. But before I get into the show, let me make sure that I tell you what this show is all about, who I am, and what it is we're doing here. So, my name is Jim Landers, and my mission, well, it's simple. I help portrait photographers just like you make a great income doing what they love. Each week, you'll get tips and systems on the business side of photography designed to help you gain a mastery over marketing and sales, reducing the struggles that most photographers face so you can finally get what you deserve. You're in the right place. Welcome to the Portrait Profit Show. The Portrait Profit Show is brought to you by Digital Pro Lab and Landers Photography School. So I hope you guys have your notepads ready, because I do talk fast sometimes, and I do get a little bit excited. So have that notepad ready. Be ready with also your questions. I encourage your questions and your comments in the while you're watching. So that if you've got any questions, please ask them. I'm going to ask you some questions, so be prepared to answer them. And hit that like button, hit that love button. I can see 3 of you have already hit that like button, and I appreciate that. That's one of the things that uplifts me as the person who's sharing this stuff with you. So I encourage you, hit that like button, hit that love button if I deserve it, and comment and ask questions. I may oh, hey, 2 more of you have already. Thank you guys. I appreciate that. So today we're talking about the perfect price list. Not just a price list or any price list will do, because it won't. You have to have one that is specific to what it is that you're trying to accomplish, what it is you're doing. Photography is your passion. It's what you love doing. But if we're talking about getting from point A to point B, and I'm going to go more into this in a moment, if we're going from point A to point B, then the vehicle to get you to point B is your photography business. So we're talking about a vehicle. And you love your vehicle. You love your car. In this instance, you love your business, the thing that causes you to get what you want in life. Your prices are based on what you want in life. They're not based on what other photographers charge. And I can prove it if you'll stick with me throughout today's episode called The Perfect Price List. So let me bring up my handout, and I'll be sharing this with you as we go, but I don't want you to read along with me. So in fact, I can share the first part of it. Let's do that real fast. Do I have that right? Yeah. All right. So I'm going to share my screen real quick just so you can see the handout. By the way, if you're one of my students, you get the handouts for free. I just include them. All you have to do is ask. Those of you who are watching online, I don't have a way of getting it to you. But this is the handout for today on the perfect price list. I guess this part doesn't matter up here. That's just the cover page. But I'm going to be showing you this graphic here in just a moment. All right. Let's unshare because we don't need to see that. All right. Back to that handout. So sometime in the 90s, I got this odd question, or so I thought. It came over the phone with a new prospect who said, "How much is an 8x10? He didn't start with the usual questions like, "How much do you charge?" Or, "Are you available on some specific date?" Or, "Do you do the type of photography that they're looking for?" No, he said, "How much is an 8x10? That's how he started the phone call. How much is an 8x10? That question caused me to pause. Because I'd never heard it before. It just seemed unusual to ask that question. How much is an 8x10? It made me wonder several things. Like, what is it that he wants me to photograph? And is an 8x10 really all that he wanted? And it caused me to pause because I had more than one price for an 8x10. Yeah, you heard me right. I charge different people different amounts for my prints. Now, before you get the wrong idea, I did both events and portrait work. And event 8x10s just plain cost me less than portrait 8x10s because it takes me less time to complete the job. A portrait takes more time because I have to fine tune it. There's a lot of other variables, a lot of other things that have to get done for that 8x10 that I don't have to do for an event 8x10. So therefore, it costs less to do an event 8x10 compared to a portrait 8x10. Now I know, because I've had this discussion with hundreds, if not thousands, of photographers over the years, that some of you are thinking, but the lab charges the same. So why would the photographer charge different amounts for an 8x10? An 8x10 is an 8x10. Oh, sure, there's different print types, there's different surfaces, there's wood, there's metal, there's canvas, there's all these different types. Sure. You may charge differently for that. No, for the exact same piece of paper, I might charge a different amount because I don't base my price on what the lab charges. I base my price on how much time it takes me to complete the job. Let's go back to that question you might be asking. But the lab charges the same. So why would the photographer charge differently? Because photographers do not work for the lab. Do you wear a name tag that says Digital Pro Lab? I don't. Mine says Landers Photography. I'm not a reseller for Digital Pro Lab. They're just one of my many vendors that I outsource work to. They're incredibly important. And I think that Digital Pro Lab is fantastic. But they are just a tiny fraction of what it takes me to take something to get from an idea stage to a completed stage. To me, that's a framed that is a framed print installed on the wall of my clients so that they can enjoy this for years to come. So why would I base my prices off a tiny fraction of what I do? I wouldn't, unless I didn't know any better, which is where every one of us starts out, including me. At first, I did base my prices off of what the lab charged me. I felt it was the right thing to do. Besides, a photographer who I look up to, a mentor, told me that's how he did it. But let's think about this. And I'm going to share my screen again because this is where that graphic is. Price is based on the entire creative process, not one small part of it. Let's think about that. Do you see right here, initial contact? These are just some major steps. The initial contact. This could be over the phone. This could be in person. This could be a text. This could be a web form, an email. There's several things that initial contact could be, but a lot of times it's multiple. Sometimes it's one phone call, sometimes it's 2 or 3, but you have that initial contact. And at that end of the initial contact, you have planned when you're going to do your planning session, but you've got some follow-up to do, a thank you note to write. And then you have to prep for that planning session. And then you do the session prep, and then the photography session itself. And then you have your image processing where you go through and you cull the images, and then you select the ones that you want to show them, and then they choose the ones that they want. And then we fine-tune those images that they want printed, and then we send it to the printer. Here's that one small fraction. I'm not going to base my entire price on just that one small fraction. I'm going to base it on the entire creative process, because after I send it to the printer, then I've got some post-production work to do. Now, it's different for all of us. For me, I am a full-service photographer. I'm not saying that you're not a good photographer if you don't do it my way. I'm telling you how I do it, and I'm going to tell you why. In my opinion, if I give my client more work to do, then I failed. Any other industry doesn't get away with that. Let's take, for example, a roofer. Think about what a roofer does for a second. If we were to do like a roofer does, here's what a roofer would do. By the way, if you've been watching the Portrait Profit Show for a while, you've heard this one before because I use this example often. A roofer's not an artist, but they would not stoop to the level of not completing their work. Again, Jim's opinion. You do not have to share it. And by the way, there's times when I don't even think it's appropriate to do that. But I think every single job needs its own set of tools to get it to completion. For instance, if someone wants a headshot, then a logical end result could very well be an image that has been optimized for digital use for a LinkedIn profile picture. Then it is the correct thing to send them a digital file. But with a family portrait, which is what I specialize in emotional family portraits as home decor, not emotional family portraits as digital files that sit on your hard drive. That's not what I specialize in. So I'm telling you how I do it. You do it how you do it. But I'm speaking from experience, my own, and I'm telling you that story. So I go through the post-production process. Oh, by the way, I was telling this story about the roofer. Here's the roofing story. All right, so if you were a roofer who doesn't do full service, here's what you might do. You go to the person's home, you take off that old roof, you put it all in that roll-off dumpster, you have them take it away, you put your ladder back up to the car, you move all the shingles up to the front of the maybe the driveway, and you leave them there, and then you go out to your car and you grab a beautiful new bag of nails with a bow tied around it, and you walk up to that front door, press that doorbell, and say, I'm done. I hope you appreciate the work that I did and that you tell your friends, because, man, referrals make a big difference in my business. Here's a free bag of nails. You know how to use a hammer and nails. Really? Not even a roofer would do that. And yet, most photographers have stopped printing. Some have never started. The job isn't done if the end result is a print. Isn't it done yet? Complete the work. Would an artist who, let's say, his medium is painting, have that mindset? People know how to use a paintbrush. I just mix the paints for them. They can finish the painting that I'm doing for them. No painter would do that either. Why are you doing it? Because you're not comfortable with printing yet, maybe? That's no excuse. In my opinion, if there's any work left to do, you must do it. Again, this is Jim's opinion. You don't have to share it. I want you to do whatever works best for you, and whatever it is works best for your clients. But just because your client says they want a digital file, it's no excuse. Again, a painter who paints on canvas is not going to accept that. They're going to finish their work. They've got way too much pride to allow someone else to finish their work. Way too much pride. They're an artist. The roofer's not an artist. If they did what I said in that scenario, you'll see them on the troubleshooters or the defenders on the news, and not in a positive way. Somehow, we've stepped away from that over the last 20 years. So we have to include it. If you want to be full service, there are really good reasons not to. There's three main business models for photographers. There's the shoot and burners, the post and prayers, and what used to be regular sales, but has now has the new name of in-person sales, or IPS. Those are the three main business models. Shoot and burn just means you create the images and you send them to digital files. Perfect for event work. Perfect for that. What about shoot and burn? Perfect for weddings. There's other, post and pray. Perfect for weddings. Because the guest will never be able to see those photographs unless they are put online, so that someone has the potential to at least see them, but has a potential to buy them. So post and pray. You put them online, you pray that you get some print orders. But those of you who are portrait artists, portrait photographers, end result is almost always a print, not a digital file sitting on someone's hard drive. So if we are that type of photographer, then we take it to the end, and we've got quite a bit of post-production. For me, I sign every single print in gold foil, and a heated ballpoint pen. That means, yes, if I mess up the signature, I do have to send it back to the lab, but I've done it so many times, it just never happens anymore. But it did at first. It did. That was a pain. But that's what I do. I sign it all in gold. And then I package the prints. I have my own boxes with my logo embossed onto it, and that's in gold. The boxes are black, and I have a ribbon that goes around it. There's tissue that goes around the prints inside, and that's if they're the small loose prints. Now, I also do the framed prints, and I do package those differently. But anyway, there's time that's put into that. And then I drive back over to their home, and I install it on their wall. Now, if there's something like electricity that's needed, like they need to have, it's in a darker area and they need to have a light installed, I don't do that. We get an installer for that. an electrician to do that. So what the point of all this is, you have a lot of stuff that you do from that moment you talk to them to the moment it's done. And a small percentage of it is printing. And that's why I don't base my prices off of printing, because it's such a small part. And relatively speaking, it's a very small number. The lab just doesn't charge that much. It's a very small amount. I know some of you think, well, it's a lot because that's what you're used to. But if you've done your numbers, you'll realize how small a percent. It's pennies relative to the amount of time that you put into it. And your time has value. Now, as most of you know, most photographers have as most of you may or may not know, I think maybe many photographers actually don't know this. Most photographers, though, have a price that is so low that there isn't even a hope of becoming profitable, even if they get a lot more business. They're just thinking, well, if I get more business, I'll be fine. There are many of you that have a price that's so low that it doesn't matter how much business you get. You will never add up to what it is you need to be profitable. And part of it is because they base their prices of what the lab charges. If you're doing that after today, you're very unlikely to do that anymore, based on what I'm saying. Now, I'm not saying that it doesn't matter at all, that the price of the lab charges doesn't matter at all, because it does. We've got to know our cost of goods sold. We must know our hard costs, and most of us are good there. Where we often make a huge mistake is failing to include ourselves as an expense. As a business owner, if you also work in the business, which is likely every single one of us, you also play the role of employee, employer, and employee. You wear a lot of hats, but as a base, you are both employer and employee. And if you've not included in the expenses, and if you aren't included in the expenses, then you have failed to include one of the largest expenses, if not the largest expense that you'll ever have in business: labor. I mean, if you had to employ someone, wouldn't you pay them? Of course. Then doesn't it make sense that you should pay you? If you don't pay you, if you don't include you in the expenses, you're the worst boss ever. You're the boss and the employee. Pay that guy. Yes, it's the same person, but that person gets paid, included in your expenses. You must include yourself as an expense. You must pay yourself. So we need to know how much to pay ourselves. How much are you worth? Is it based on how much you made at your most recent full-time job? Maybe you have a full-time job other than photography right now. So you may be thinking, I could leave this job if I could replace my income. Okay, let's run with that thought just for a moment. No, I'll just tell you up front, that doesn't work. If you, let's say, make $50,000 at your full-time job, you'll need to make a lot more than the equivalent. And the reason is because at most jobs you are given everything you need to do the job. But when you're self-employed, you must pay for everything yourself. And that money has to come from somewhere. Let's give you an example. Let's say, you know what, I know that someone on here, or I think someone on here is a public school teacher. So let's pick on public school teachers. Actually, there's nothing to pick on. They're wonderful, hardworking, great people. They are. There's exceptions in every group, but as a group, these are good quality people. There are some things that they actually do pay for, which is unusual for a job. But there are some things that public school teachers do pay for. Let's start off with that. And it does come out of their salary. It does. But for a moment, let's talk about the things that they don't have to pay for. That if you were to do the equivalent, you would have to pay for. For instance, how much does that public school teacher pay for the space that they are in? What's their rent? They don't pay rent. What are you talking about? You're going to have to. What about electricity? They like having the lights on, I'm sure. I mean, they like having it air conditioned. How much are they paying for that? They're not paying for that either, but you're going to have to. How much are they paying for their desk? The students' desks. The dry erase board, the projector, the screen that the projector projects onto, the computers, the flooring, the walls. If a light goes out, who has to pay to replace it? You have to pay for all of the things that you need to do your job. All. So therefore, you're going to have to make a whole lot more. You can't just simply replace your income. If you want a ballpark amount, a generalization that your business will need to bring in, it's about 3 times. So if you're making $50,000 and you want to be equivalent, you're going to need to bring in about $150,000 a year to make it work. This is a generalization. This isn't the same for everybody. I can help you with that. I can help you get very specific with that in my classes. But again, this is generalization. It might be a lot more in your situation, but then again, it could be a lot less in your situation. Take advantage of a private class with me, and I will let you know exactly what it is that you need in order to reach your goals. But I can give you an idea right now. Pricing is based on the amount of time you invest and the things you want to accomplish in this life. You're going to invest time in many ways. So let's talk about what all you do that could potentially take up your time. We mentioned a few earlier when I showed you that graphic, but these things I'm going to mention, not all of these will you do, but you will do some of them, and there may be things that you do that aren't on my list. So this is a general list. These are things that I would include on mine. Things that you spend time on. Marketing. This includes social media. All the different things that you build. If you're building graphics and adding text and all the different marketing plans, implementation, emailing, marketing. Website updates, researching and purchasing equipment and supplies. Networking with other photographers, networking with your target market, bookkeeping, phone calls, going through your email, returning emails, planning sessions, the drive time, preparations for the session itself, processing images, backups, preparing images for presentation, the selection process with your client, if you do in person. Prepping the images that they've chosen for print, post-production steps, including framing, signing, packaging your work, delivery, installation, writing thank you notes throughout the process, and more, a lot more. As an employee, you deserve to get paid for every hour you're working, not just photography time. I mean, have you ever heard of a lawyer who only charged for the time they spent in the courtroom? It reminds me of a story. I'll tell you real quick. Years ago, I was photographing an awards dinner, and it was some I think it was a group within a group for the North Chamber of Commerce, North San Antonio Chamber of Commerce, and I may have that wrong, but I think that's who it was. I get there, and every single table has people already assigned to every single spot except for one, and the host of the event had me sit there. Now, they didn't want any photographs during the dinner. They wanted it during the awards section that was after dinner. And so I got, relative to that, I got there early. So I got there on time, but I got there too early to start the photography because they didn't want any photography at all, not even details of anything, because there really weren't any of that before the dinner. So they asked if I wanted dinner, and they told me it was filet mignon. I don't know about you, but I'm sitting down for dinner. She sits me down in the one spot that was left, and doesn't know the person next to me, but introduces me to them, and then she walks away. And so I sit down, and he looks right at me and points at me, and he said, "You photographers are price gougers." This guy was a lawyer. What? Talk about a reason to pause. I mentioned earlier that when someone asked me how much is an 8 by 10, I had to pause. I had to pause with this one. A lawyer telling a photographer. I mean, it sounds like the beginning of a joke, but he was serious. This lawyer pointing at me. You photographers are price gougers. He was unhappy with me, and we had never met, never crossed paths. I'd never heard his name. He'd never heard mine. And so I asked the only question I could think of. Why do you feel that way? And he told me a story, short one. He said, 2 weeks ago, I think it was 2 weeks. I could be off on the time, but it doesn't matter. 2 weeks ago, my daughter got married. That photographer was there for a total of 4 hours. And he charged me $4,000. That is $1,000 an hour. And of course, in my head, I'm thinking, you really think photographers are stupid, that they can't do that simple math? I didn't say that. I just smiled. He said, that's $1,000 an hour. That is more than I charge. And I have an education. I have liability. I have an office. I have employees. He just listed off all these things that he has. Why do you guys think you can get away with charging that amount? And I said, I'm glad you asked. In my mind, I'm thinking, I'm glad it was me he's asking, because I don't know that a lot of people would be able to respond to this, but I am. I responded just like he did. I said, I have a degree in photography. I have liability insurance. I have an office. I have employees. And I mentioned every single thing he said. And I said, it would be the equivalent of you only charging for court time. Are you willing to change the way you charge to only court time and not get paid for what you do outside the courtroom? Because that's all the photographers are charging for, just the time they're seen. That's what it looks like to you. But for every hour you see that wedding photographer, they're putting in 10, maybe 20 hours. The average, and I had stopped doing weddings. I stopped selling my weddings in 2013, but then I changed my prices, and somehow I raised them, and somehow that increased my business. And so I actually had to stop in 2015, and I did have 1 or 2 scheduled in 2016, but I've been done for years with weddings. And I'll tell you about that later in some other episode. But photographers don't charge for just the time they're seen, but that is what it looks like to them. So that's what he related it to. By the way, he's a lawyer. I did not win the argument, if you're curious if I won him over. He doubted that photographers spend any more time than they're seen. He didn't believe me. In his opinion, a photographer shows up, acts big, does a few things, goes home, sits on the couch eating bonbons and watching Netflix. That's what he thinks a photographer does. Easiest job in the world. He wasn't convinced. But I did share that with him. And He wasn't convinced then. He probably didn't choose to be convinced then, but I bet he mulled it over in his head and came to the conclusion this isn't as bad as I thought. Now, let me share some pricing thoughts in addition to what I've shared. There is a philosophy that says start low, raise your prices later. And there is some good truth to this, but most of us are misunderstanding what it means, and most of us use that information incorrectly. And so I say the opposite. Don't start low, then plan to raise your prices later. In fact, if I were to make a top 10 list of best ways to fail, I would put that on it. Not because that philosophy is bad, but because most photographers charge a price that is so low, they're losing money every single time they do a job. They just haven't done the math, so they don't know it. They haven't included themselves as an expense. So they don't realize that they're actually losing money on the deal. And so until someone has done their numbers, I'd say don't start low and then plan to raise later. Now, once they have, then this actually does work. But until you've done that, you can't do that because you're going to wind up at the price that's too low. Next. I believe that you must start higher than what you are comfortable with. Please keep one thing in mind. You're not your target market. You are a do-it-yourselfer. And do-it-yourselfers don't pay full price because they're doing it themselves. And so if you're making all your choices based on what I would do, you meaning you're making your choices incorrectly. What would I do? I wouldn't buy that. That's too much. So you make an adjustment. You're a do-it-yourselfer. Of course you wouldn't pay that much. You're not your own target market. And for the most part, neither is your friends and family because they're expecting a deal. So you can't really take advice from them either. Listen to them because they're sharing that advice with love. So give them that respect. But you just don't take advice from them. By the way, there is no one price fits all. But there are many solutions for finding the prices that will cause you to reach your goals. Over 90% of the photographers that I have seen have prices that are too low to sustain their business. And only a small fraction have prices that will cause them to reach their goals. If you get this foundation right, we're going over it in a moment, and your pricing, get the foundation right and your pricing will flow. It will always feel right and you'll never cave on your prices again. Because you know that this price that we're coming to is the price that causes you to reach your goals. And anything less than that causes you to fail. And so you won't cave on your prices. You just won't. You won't ever do it. Now, I'm not saying there won't be times when you have a low price or free, because I do that for the charities and organizations that I believe in who need some help. I will do that for them. But that's not my target market. Now, they may work with my target market because I do target charities and organizations based on who they attract, because I want to be in the presence of those. I want to cross paths with those who are my target market. So I am thinking this all through. Luckily, everything just fits in place. But get the foundation right, and your pricing will flow, and it will feel right, and you won't cave ever. It's like getting on the road to an appointment. We start off with the planning, not only where we want to go, but also when you want to get there. Without this base, you'll likely never create the environment necessary to bring your dreams into reality. Now, this is an example I give often, but let's simplify this to something very simple and something all of us know. When you're going from point A to point B, let's say most of us are in this general area of Texas. We're in San Antonio. I know that there are some of you that are beyond that, but just bear with me. This will make sense even still. If we are at I-10 and 1604, let's say that we're at the Elan. We're at I-10-1604 area, and our goal is to get downtown. Because we know where we're at and we know where we're going, we have the base for reaching success. If we don't know where we're at, we've got to find out where we're at. If we don't know where we're going, we've got to find out where we're going. Because with those 2 points, we now have the basis for a path to get between the 2. If we don't have either one of those 2, we can't build a path. There's no path to be built between 2 non-existent points. You have to have the points in place in order to know where you're going. Now, that's one of 3 things you must have in place. A destination. The second thing you need is a path to get to your destination. Once you know where you're going, then you can. In this instance, you take I-10 all the way there. I'm giving that example very specifically because it's only one road and it's relatively straight. It's not straight, but relatively speaking. Just to simplify. So now we've got point A, we've got point B. We have a path to get there. The third thing, timeline. Because when we have an appointment to get to, we're at where we're at, we make a decision on when to leave based on traffic conditions, how long we think it's going to take to get there. Now let's talk about how most of us do our photography business. We get out on the road and we start driving, but we haven't defined where we're going. So we get into the road and into the drive and we run out of gas. We're tired. We blame the road. We blame the environment. We blame everything but ourselves. Guys, if you're experiencing problems with clients not wanting to pay your price or clients only wanting digital files or whatever your reason is, by the way, reasons, excuses. Excuses, they're just excuses. You are responsible for you. The problems aren't the clients. That's not where the problem exists. For most photographers, they haven't even done the base planning point A and point B. And if they have, they haven't defined a path to get there. And if they have, they haven't defined a timeline. I've yet to come across a photographer with a timeline unless they went through my class. And then I have seen it. You have to have all 3 things in place. If you don't, you haven't even given yourself potential to be successful in photography. You have to have all 3 in place. By the way, there's a lot more that I can talk about that, but I want to get to the this Excel file that I have. I want to share this with you. And there we go, annual income goal worksheet. I'm about to share this with you. I think. Yeah. Well, easier said than done. Open up a new window. There we go. Working kind of slowly, computer. There we go. I think it's coming up. There it is. All right. So I'm going to share the screen with you, and I've got some questions for you. In the comment section, I want you to tell me what amount of money you want to bring in. By the way, I haven't been looking at the comments, so I guess I better do that. Let's see, Bianca and Jay. Good to see you guys here. Glad you're here again. Ooh, someone's here for the first time. That's awesome. By the way, if you go up to the top of the post, the original post, you'll see a little link on there that allows your name and photograph to be used. And so it won't say Facebook user here. It'll have a name and a photograph there. Perfect price list. Wow. Yeah, you got it. Let's see. Oh, so that was Sandra. Sandra, I'm glad you're here. I've spoken with Sandra several times, and I've spoken with Rick several times. Yep, that's what we think. Uh-huh. Uh, I can understand how you feel that way. I absolutely understand. By the way, someone asked if they're can you rewatch it? Yes, all the Portrait Prophet shows are in the feed. So if you just go, there may be several things that are now on top of it, but if you go down into the feed, you'll find it because all the recordings are there. So you could watch these again anytime. Uh, See, Bianca, there is no such thing as normal except when compared to yourself, because everybody has different goals, and we're going to get into that here in just a moment, so that makes a lot more sense. So it'd be the equivalent of saying, I've never been to a grocery store. What's the best thing to buy when I'm here? Well, whatever it is that you need for yourself or for your home. That's the correct answer. So there is no normal. And if someone answers with a normal, um, if they only give you that amount, they're guesstimating, or they're trying to answer the question very quickly, which I do sometimes myself. But there is no such thing as a norm. There's an average, though, and we're not getting into that because I want you to actually know what it is that you should charge. Ah, good. I'm looking through these. Yep, that is a struggle. Yep, we're talking about that. We're going to be talking about that here in just a second. Uh, let's see. Nice. That's kind of cool. By the way, you'll join a small group of people who have done exactly that. And man, what a good feeling that must be. It is difficult to comprehend at first. It absolutely is. It took me a long time to come to this conclusion. And again, I'm giving you more. Once I tell you this next part, it's going to make sense because it's the math part of it, not just the philosophy part. Let's see. Well, the amount you need is totally up to you. So that's not a number that I could say. And so, Lisa, there are part timers that are bringing in up to 100,000 that I'm working with, part timers. So yeah, it depends on the individual what they want to bring in. Okay, good. So Miguel, 80,000 is what you want to bring in. Uh, Chuck says 80 to 100,000. Rick is saying 200 an hour for every hour you work, or just for when you're seen. So a bunch of good things in here. Hey, Paula. Hey, Mario. Uh, Lisa. Yeah, you might be. Everybody's different though. So there's nothing surface level about this. We have to get into more detail. And so let's do that real quick. Thanks for letting me go through those comments real quick. All right, so let's share my screen. Take that back off. A second, Chrome tab. Did I get it? Well, I think I'm showing it. Nope, I'm not. It went off. I see. Let's try that again. Hmm. Not exactly the one I wanted to show. Let's do. Okay. I think I have it almost. Almost here. There it is. All right. So what you should be seeing on your screen right now is an Excel file. It's actually Google Sheets. And I'm going to go through this using your numbers. Good, Rick. All right, so let's look at this real quick, and I can see that the price list is taking up some of the screen, so I'm going to take that off temporarily. There we go. All right, so this is the actual form that I use to show to my those who are taking my classes, or if you've signed up for my business assessment consultation. By the way, you get a free 30-minute appointment with me to talk about your business, your portrait photography business. It's not time to talk about shoes or the weather. This is portrait photography business that I'm giving this 30 minutes for once a year. And if you want to talk about prices during your time, then this is the form that we bring up during our time together. So let's look at this real quick. So two of you put $80,000 is what you'd like to bring in. So let's say $80,000 is your number. If you want to make $80,000, you can't bring in $80,000 because you want $80,000 for you. So therefore, you've got to bring in enough money for taxes and expenses in addition to the money for you, right? All right, so let's look at this. Now, you'll see that number here, I put in 80, then this automatically, the gray areas I fill in, everything else is part of the equations that I did behind the scenes. So then we need to bring in about nearly $250,000. This number, by the way, all I did was multiply by 3, and this is way too simple. If we were to work together, I would be much more specific in this number. But when I have to generalize, I don't know what income bracket you're in. I don't know what your expenses are. And so for purposes of generalizing, I make it simple, although in many cases incorrect, but ballpark anyway. I just take the number that you want to bring in, I multiply that by 3, and I make that my income goal. Now, it's quite possible that if you want to bring in 80,000, you'll need to bring in 150, 175, 180, 200. But if you were to bring in 240, you would guarantee yourself to get into the $80,000 for sure. I'd rather have a number, a goal number that's too high than just right or too low. So that's why I chose to multiply by 3. Your taxes are probably not going to be a third. In this instance, if you bring in 240, $80,000. Chances are it's going to be offset by expenses and other things, lowering that tax liability. So it won't be that much. It'll probably be 24% minus some expenses, of course. So your number will likely be less than this. But again, for generalization purposes, 240 is the goal we're after. Now, I want you guys to tell me this in the comments. How much time would you like to have off? And this is in your ideal world. Amazing ideal world. How much time do you want to have off? 4 weeks a year? 8 weeks a year? By the way, the number one answer is somewhere between 4 and 8 weeks. And so I'm going to put in 8. Let's take 2 months off. Why not? Now, this is your vacation time. You're the boss. You get to decide what you want to do. Your employee also. So you have to decide. What do I want off? I'd say start your annual calendar with when do I want to take off? Vacations, personal time, whatever. Mark it off. I don't want to work this day. Mark it off. But make it part of your plan. So this is vacation time, but it's also personal time, medical appointments, anything that takes you away from the business. So an accumulated amount of time of 8 weeks is what I've put here. Now, the number of weeks you work per year, because there's 52 weeks in a year, would be 44, meaning you need to bring in about $5,500 every single week in order to reach your goal of 240,000. How many sessions do you want to work per week? Put that number in the comments section. This is the ideal version again. Take the realism out of it for now. And what would be fantastic? If you like your clients a lot and you want to spend more time with them, then this number is going to be smaller. It is. Because you're going to spend a lot of time with them, getting to know them. That takes time. If you're going to do in-person sales like I do it, where I go to them for the planning session because I want to be in the place where this photograph is going to be displayed. Because that tells me the size it's supposed to be. It tells me colors. It tells me a lot of different things by being in the location. I can totally customize it if I'm in their location. However, that takes time. If I'm going to do things like that, that takes time. If I find value in those things, then I have to consider that I won't be able to photograph as many people as some other photographers might be able to. So that number, a lot of times, for those who have answered the question around me, has been 4. Now, you may have a different number. Your number's right for you, maybe not. But the number that I hear most often is 4 sessions a week. By the way, if you have a full-time job, you might be able to do 4 sessions and have your full-time job. It depends. But that means your average sale must be $1,300. You see that number right here, 1,364. If you're doing 4 sessions, then 1,364 is the amount you need to bring in. How many hours do you want to work per week? Again, ideal version. I mean, if you have a full-time job and you're working 40, 50, 60 hours a week right now, do you think, woohoo, that's fantastic, I want to do exactly the same? Or are you thinking, I mean, I'm willing to do that, but if you're saying ideal world, I'd rather have smaller number of hours that I'm working. So let's say 30. Most of my clients will say 30. So that's why that number is sitting here already. By the way, if you were going through this with me in one of our private sessions, I would put in your numbers here and we'd get your exact numbers. So 30 hours. Put in the comment section right now, how many hours would you like to work per week? Ideal world. Taking all variables out, take your version of reality out of the picture right now and say, all right, in an ideal world, I'd like to work 10 hours. I'd like to work 20 hours. I'd like to work 30. I'm fine with 40. Average sale, 1,300. Number of hours, 30. Simple math tells me in this scenario, you are worth $182 for every single hour you work. Every one of them. Not photography time. This is not photography time. This is total time. The entire creative process that we talked about earlier. Total time is worth $182 an hour. So Rick, when you said 200, these are pretty much your numbers. All right, in summary, you're bringing in over $200,000 in order to reach your goal. Your average sale is going to have to be $1,300. Now, for some of you, $1,300 is a larger amount than you've ever brought in on a single sale before. I've come across many who have sales averages 400 and less. You're going to have to be extremely high volume to make 400 work. And those of you who have prices that are around 50 or 75, guys, you're not thinking this through. It is impossible for you to reach your goals with numbers so low. By the way, have you looked at the high volume photographers like LifeTouch who photograph 500, 1,000, 2,000 at each school and photograph probably 5 to 7 schools every day? Have you looked at how much they're charging? High volume, extremely high volume, is charging in the $50 to $75 range. And you, with your low volume, think you can compete with that? You aren't thinking this through. It doesn't work. High volume versus low volume, there has to be a difference in price. Basic business class would tell you that, but I don't even think you need that in order to know it. All right, so summary. Our goal, 240,000. We're working 44 hours, 44 weeks per year. We need to bring in an average of $5,500 for every week. We have four sessions per uh, week. Average sale is 1,364. You're working 30 hours. You're worth 182. This tells me a couple more things. It tells me that you must invest 12 hours into things other than things that are directly attributable to clients, including marketing, bookkeeping, updating your website. The majority of that is marketing, by the way. 12 hours if you're working 30. 18 hours is the maximum number of hours you can spend to photography. Now, when I say photography, that means everything directly attributable to a client. So the whole creative process I mentioned earlier are the things that are directly attributable to a client. So from that first phone call, the planning session, the session itself, culling the images, showing the images, sending it to the printer, getting it back and putting it up on the wall, those are directly attributable to a client. The other things aren't. That means in this scenario, you can only spend 4.5 hours total time with that client. That doesn't mean in person. It does not mean photography time. It means total time. So what that says in this particular instance is you're going to have to cut some things out from the way I do it, meaning I can't do 4 in a week because 4.5 hours is not enough time for me to spend total time with my client. I spend an average of 20 hours with my clients. So therefore, I can only do 1 a week. That's it. By the way, my average sale, I'm not really doing photography as much anymore, so it's not fair to show those numbers. But when I was still doing it as my main source of income, 2017, 2018, and 2019 were the final 3 years. And in that time period, my average sale was $3,800 here in San Antonio. Today, that number would have increased because I increase my prices every year. The person who has the highest average in San Antonio that I'm aware of brings in a little over $15,000 per sale. So if you think that there aren't people in San Antonio that will pay the $4,000 that is my average sale, come on. I did it. I know it's real. All right, print prices. This brings us to the last part, print prices. If our average sale is $1,364, about $1,400, and if we choose to have a creation fee, which I do, my creation fee is $400, and that's just for my time. That's it, time alone. No prints are included. No digital files are included. I have value. And if someone doesn't think I do, then we don't wind up doing business together. I work with people who value me and what I do. Period. I attract that person. People ask this question of me every once in a while, how do you find people who want to do prints? Because everybody I talk to says, just send me digital files. Guys, I don't find them. That's the hard way. In fact, I'd say that's the impossible way. They find me because my marketing tells them what it is that I do. I'm just a tool on a shelf. There's a lot of photographers out there. Each one of us occupies a space on the shelf at Home Depot. We're just tools. They take the tool off the shelf that they think is best for them. If you do a good job of defining what tool you are, then they're very confident in which one they choose. And if they don't want the kind that I have described, they don't pick me up. So I don't get the phone calls for those who want something else. I only get the phone calls for those who want what I'm asking for, what I say that I do. That's it. Because my marketing tells them that's what I do. I don't seek them out. Don't seek the seekers. They're seeking. Do a good job of defining what it is you do. That way they just come to you. And you only get calls from those who are after what it is that you choose to do. It's your choice. If things aren't working out, don't blame anybody else. It's you. It's not the client's fault. It's not the city's fault. I've heard people say people in San Antonio just don't pay high prices. They're cheap. Guys, the ones you're going after are. But you can't say that a whole city is like that. Have you seen the houses? There's ones that are very expensive, yes, yeah. And there's some that are incredible. So therefore, there is money in this area. It'd be foolish to think that there wasn't. So you may say, well, that's true, but they don't have value for photography. The people you're after don't, because you haven't done a good job of targeting your market. It's your fault, not theirs. We have to do a good job of defining who we are so that people can take us off the shelf. And I charge a $400 creation fee because I have value. You don't have to do that. There's other business models that don't and that work just fine. But you must think it through. And I can help you with that. But for me, if my goal was to get in $1,364 per client, then I'd have to make up the difference because I'm getting that $400 for the creation fee. They've already agreed to do that. They've already paid it. So what do I need left in my print sale? 964 in this particular scenario. So in this scenario, and I'm going to make this a bit bigger because I need for it to include more. Bit more than that. There we go. All right, so I am choosing the price of my 8x10, and I need whatever this side is to equal approximately that number. Now, let's tell you what that side is. This is what does my client order? Are they ordering just digital files? Are they ordering an album? Are they ordering a different types of prints? And so for the last person I spoke with, they said the average person's going to get one 8x10, one 16x20, and one 5x7. That was for that person. And so we're going to use that for now. So if they buy one 8x10, one 16x20, and one 5x7, then that comes to 925, which means that number is slightly less than that, so we need to raise it. So let's go up to 189. And that gets us pretty close. Let's go to 190. And I'm just going to keep it even numbers. And so that took us higher. So let's leave it at 195. That's close enough. All right. So that tells me the price of my 8x10. It's 195 in order to reach my goal based off of what your average print sale is. Some of you don't know what your average print sale is. I can help you with that too. It might take a while to get to that because this is based on what your clients are doing, but I can help you with that. All right, I'm going to stop sharing that for a moment. Let's do that same thing, but let's change a couple of numbers. For instance, let's say instead of $1,300, almost $1,400, that your average sale was $400. All right, so let's do the math on that. Got a calculator? 400. If my goal is to bring in $240,000 and my average sale was only $400, I would need to photograph 600 jobs every year in order to reach my goal. Do you have time for that? That's at 400. What if your average sale was 150, 200? Do you have time for 1,200 jobs per year? If it was at 200? Guys, it's math. How do you feel about that? Now, this takes a lot to think about. There's a lot of variables going on here. This isn't easy when you haven't thought it through before. It's difficult. Anything you do for the first time is difficult. Anything that you haven't completed yet is difficult. It only becomes easy once you've become comfortable with it. So allow me to help you become comfortable with it. I didn't start off being comfortable with this. You may see it just easily roll off of my tongue, but it didn't start that way. It took years to get to that point. I can shave off a decade of your trial and error in a very short period of time. It's what I do. All you have to do is reach out. By the way, Jim at landersphotoSchool.com. Landers Photo School. You don't need the Griffey. landersphotoSchool.com. Jim at landersphotoSchool.com. Just reach out to me. Now, if you have the link to get on my schedule, then use that. If you have the link to Lunch with Landers, use that. I take a photographer to lunch with me every single week. I pay. They don't. They have to show up. So it does take their time. But they're not going to be paying anything for lunch. I got it. Every week. Sometimes more than one in a week, but for the most part, one a week. That's Lunch with Landers. Whenever you see that link come up, use it. I don't have it handy, so that's why I'm not including it right now. But I'm going to look through these the comments. 2 sessions a week. Yeah. Yep. Paula, there's a lot of time that someone could spend and should in some instances, and yours is one of those, where you put a massive amount of time into it because that's the process. That's the right thing to do. What it means is you can't have $400 as your sale price, and I'm sure you clearly realize that. But I also think clearly there's others that don't. And by the way, I come across this every once in a while where someone says, well, I'm young or I'm old. And someone just posted, I am old. I don't know who, but age isn't the relevant variable here. Your destinations are what's relevant. Define what it is that you want in this life, and you'll know how much money you need to bring in. So there's a connection there that I don't have time to talk about today, but if I had a private session with you, we would go over it. You would be clear. You would be amazed. I'm amazed every time I go through it with someone. I have that same brand new feeling every time. I don't know how that's possible because I've done this so many times, but I do. I think because I'm feeling it from their point of view. This is exciting. Take advantage of my 30-minute private session. By the way, if you want to keep that going, I do coaching sessions where we continue this because doing it in 30 minutes, come on, that's not enough time. But it is absolutely helpful and eye-opening. So I want to bring Amanda back on to because I'm curious, Amanda, how do you feel about some of the things that we've shared, or how do you do it that may be somewhat different?
Well, I did want to speak a little bit to value. I love the fact that you focus on that word, value. Valuing yourself, I think is really, really important for any business owner. Valuing yourself above almost anything else, because that is very much a part of valuing what you do and valuing what you offer, and inevitably valuing your client enough to make sure that there's value in what you're providing them. And $80,000 a year, to be able to say that shows that you value yourself to want to make that amount of money and show that that's what you're worth to yourself. And just like Jim was showing you, to make that amount of money, you have to, in mathematical terms, as you were showing you on that spreadsheet, there are different points that you're going to need to associate that value. And you have to back up into that number. And just like I'm saying, it's not just about valuing yourself. It's valuing, what you offer, valuing what you do as a photographer, that creativity there that takes time and effort, and then inevitably valuing the client that you have. And I can tell you that, Jim's reiterated multiple times in multiple sessions that I'm sure you see Isla in the background over there. There's definitely, there's definitely going to be a time when you question what your value is, you question, how much you want to charge, but this community is a big community here. Um, Jim is amazing at giving you some tangible advice that can help you get to the point where you find that value, where you see it in simple terms, and it's a lot. It is a lot as a business owner to be able to kind of say, let me step back and figure out what my numbers need to be. I know we've talked on other sessions about how difficult sometimes the business side, the financial side can be, but you've got a lot of people that can help you. I know Jim is definitely one of those people that can give you that one-on-one time, sit with you, go through it. He's got the resources, he's got spreadsheets, which is amazing, and I think that's really important for you to be able to see. I know myself as a business owner, especially as an owner of a lab, this idea of price, this idea of knowing who your client is very, very important. It's something that, I myself have to remind myself that not every client is going to be my client. I know that I have value. I know that I add value to the market. I know that I'm differentiating myself against other tools on the shelf, just as Jim mentioned. And it's important to know that. And again, it all boils back down to value, and valuing what you do, valuing what you offer, and then valuing the client that you're trying to serve. So, Jim, I love this session. I think it's amazing. I know you're going to have a lot of people that are going to be going back to it to kind of go back through, probably look at the spreadsheet again, and obviously listen to the words of advice that you're giving them. But I do want to, reiterate value. I think we could probably do an entire session on just value and photographers learning to value themselves, because a lot of times the confidence level that they lack, especially in growing their business or in determining things like pricing, all boils down to value. And also the reminder that, you may not be your own client. So you say that you may not be your own client. Another one that I know that I like to remind people is, let's see, how does it go? You might remember, Jim, but don't put your wallet in somebody else's pocket.
Oh,
That's okay.
who said that? Was that oh, who might have said that? Yeah, I that's totally true. I'm trying to remember who said that, but I like that one.
hmm Yeah, not everybody has your same budget. I've
Yeah.
made that mistake too, and assume that somebody doesn't quite have the amount of money that I'm thinking that they are going to need for a certain job, and then they come and say, no, I want more, and it ends up being double the amount. So it's important to
Yeah,
remember that.
it's none of our business how much money someone has. The only thing that we should be caring about is how much value, and you mentioned that before, how much value they have in what we are doing, what service we're providing. So if you are putting yourself and saying, well, I don't think they can afford it, how rude. It's none of your business to define how much money they have and how much they're willing to spend on something. How rude.
Exactly. Yeah. No, I totally agree.
Um,
So I do have a couple of things to share, and I'll make some of them quick because I know we're running out of time here. But
awesome.
let's go. So because we're talking about price, the one thing that I did want to show, and let me put this up. All right. So most people don't realize, I wanted to kind of reiterate it today, and hopefully you can see those. So at Digital ProLab, we offer two different print workflows. We have our full service ordering print workflow, and then we have our monitor match print workflow. And those workflows have two different pricing structures. So I do want to bring that up because a lot of times we have a lot of our customers that come in and they're questioning rates and how do I get those rates down. So we've developed a pricing model within the print workflow model because, as many of you know, uh, there's different amounts of time that some photographers like to dedicate to their editing, to their printing in general. So that's where we've kind of developed this model, this full service versus monitor match. So with full service, that's generally going to be for the printmaker or the photo taker, right, that wants to create prints. For the one that does not necessarily want to do any of the editing themselves, they want the lab to do the majority of the work because that's what we specialize in. That's what we do. We're going to see the end product. If for some reason it doesn't come out quite right based on the correction that we make, we're going to print it again until it gets to a point that we're happy with it. The other part of full service is if you don't like it, we'll redo it at no additional charge. At one point in the conversation, Jim talked a little bit about liability. So that full service print workflow actually puts the liability more on us and less on you. So you're going to pay a little bit more for that rate because we 100% are going to guarantee that you like whatever we're doing until, even if it takes a couple of times to get it right. So I wanted to mention that. The other thing with full service is you can come into the store, you can order online, you have a lot more ordering options to fit within what you prefer, especially as a new photographer that maybe didn't originally, or maybe an old photographer, you've done it for a while but didn't offer printing. You may want somebody to kind of walk you through, just like Jim is taking care of walking somebody one to one through building their business. We also walk hand in hand with our clients, our photographers, to get them confident about the products they're offering, the products they're going to be ordering, the pricing, just the ordering in general. We do all of that side by side with our clients, especially within that full service print workflow, because we do offer that over the counter. So anybody coming in, you've got our entire staff to help you. I can pull people from the back if you need further explanation, all of that good stuff. So you've got the entire team behind you to help you. Now, Monitor Match, which is what I'm kind of advertising right here, is a little bit different. So the goal here is to work more with you up front and making sure that your monitor is properly calibrated. Because if you're a photographer and part of the time that you're not spending shooting is editing, then you're using Lightroom, Photoshop, any of the top editing softwares, and you're actually doing quite a bit of work to make your image look a certain way. You don't need the lab to come behind you and tweak it after you've spent so much time getting it to the point that you need to get it to. So the key there is making sure that you're operating on a calibrated monitor. And remember, my metaphor is always making sure that your instrument is in tune before you play. That's what monitor calibration is. And Monitor Match Print workflow fits within that model so that all we have to do as a lab is print it and you get exactly what you saw on your calibrated monitor. Now, we're able to provide much, much more aggressive rates. So we're looking at anywhere from 20 to 50% less because of the fact that we're not having to do a lot of that work. We're not having to do any reprints or anything like that. So we're able to offer you that back because you're doing, again, the majority of the work there. Now, with Monitor Match, it does require an account sign up. I will say the majority of our pro photographers that are doing their own editing on a calibrated monitor, like I said, are ordering through that system. It's not offered in store. It's only offered online. So we want to make sure that you're comfortable within the ordering system. We want to make sure that you're knowledgeable with the products. And again, we do a lot of that education up front with you, hand in hand, until you're comfortable, and then we just let you fly. So that's an important thing to note about our lab. And I do want to show you really quick. Give me one sec. All right. So if you go to digitalprolab.com, you're typically going to land on that home screen. I've already gone ahead and clicked on our ordering button. And then within that ordering screen, you're actually going to see that we have 1, 2, 3 different methods of ordering. So the 2 that I've mentioned so far are going to be full service and then the Monitor Match. So Monitor Match right there, one sec. You just simply click on that. It's going to take you directly to that page to sign up. Now, it does have this fabulous pop-up reminding you the importance of monitor calibration, because I can tell you that you will not be happy unless your monitor is calibrated before you actually submit from there. But otherwise, there's a little bit of information to know about it. There is a $6 minimum. But again, we've got that more aggressive pricing. And then just go ahead and click the sign up button. And once you click that sign up, you can go ahead and sign up. We'll receive that. We review it. because we do want to make sure that it's going to be a good fit for you. And then typically within 24 to 48 hours, you'll have access to those rates. So we want to make sure that you have the most aggressive rates there. All right. All right. And lastly, the special that we did for y'all last week was pretty popular. So we're going to keep that going, which is a 30% off fine art prints. We're going to extend it till Friday. And it's going to have your promo code of fine print, FINE print, PRINT, fine print for 30% off any of our fine art prints. Now, keep in mind with that full service and monitor match print workflow pricing, that's 30% off either one. So consider the monitor match pricing being about 20 to 50% less of what full service is, because again, you're doing the majority of the work and we're just printing. Now take 30% off on top of that. So keep that in mind. That's how we also like to look at those different print workflows and those pricing structures. Okay. And then just a reminder that we do have our GSAC print competition coming up. It's coming up pretty quick. You've got about 10 days left to prepare. So take advantage of that special for the 30% off fine art prints, because that's a great print to actually showcase your work if you'd like it to be judged and critiqued. I think it's a great way for you to grow as a photographer, to print your work, to see how other people receive it and hear some feedback. So we do have that coming up, and I hope you'll participate in that as well. And I think that's it. I think that's it, Jim. I've got a lot going on, but I think that'll cover it.
Cool. Well, yeah, definitely recommend you guys show up for this. Participating in it is great, but just showing up to know what's going on to the Greater San Antonio Camera Club. This Camera Club has been around a long time. In fact, I don't believe there's anything that's been around as long as this particular Camera Club. I believe it started in 1951. And so it's been around a long time. The PPSA has been around a long time, but I think that was 68 to 72 range. So that one's been around a long time. But definitely participate in things like this. Just at least to show up and find out what's going on. You'll be surrounded by other photographers. You'll hear critiques, and you will gain something just by being there. You could talk to people while you're there. You can listen to these critiques. It's a fantastic thing. So definitely recommend that, and take advantage of the monitor match. You guys want to take advantage of this. I don't think I need to do any convincing of this one. So sign up for that, and then, man, seems like there's a new promo code, a special deal that you give us every single time, and this is a fantastic one. 4 different paper types, 30% off. You have until the day, the 11th. Was that the day before our next one?
It should be Friday, actually, this Friday.
Friday, okay, this coming Friday. So you have a handful of days to use that. So take advantage. 30% off. You guys aren't going to get a better deal than that. And they're probably taking away all of their profit just so that you can be familiar with this product. And they're happy to do this because they want you to experience this. You see how excited Amanda gets, and her team is equally excited. She wouldn't have them around if they were holding things back. So she and her team are just wonderful people who are doing things to uplift us as photographers. They are a wonderful support group. So take advantage of that. That's what they want you to do. So 30% off, just use that promo code, Fine Print. Nice. All right, so Amanda, we have we want to announce what the next one is, and we want to say that it's the second Monday next week. Today's the first. So the second Monday of every single month, Portrait Profits meets at 6:30 in the evening. And that's just to accommodate those who can't make the lunch schedule. Yeah, I know. It's recorded and it's there. You can get it any time because it's in the news feed. But we have one that we do differently every single month, the second Monday. And we do it as a panel where we bring in up to 3 different photographers to share their opinion. We ask them questions and get their responses. That way you hear it from more than just us. This topic is going to be on the same thing we talked about today. We're going to be talking about, and I'm going to bring up upcoming episodes. Here we go. We're going to be talking about how I do my pricing. And this is from up to 3 other photographers. This is Monday, February 14th. Yes, I know it's Valentine's Day. So some of you may not be able to make it at that time. But it's a weekday, so probably you took care of Valentine's Day on Saturday or Sunday already. So you're good. And if you're not, you probably should take care of it early. I mean, surprise. They love that. All right, so February 14th, 6:30 in the evening, we're going to have people who will have their opinions about pricing. Some of them will agree with what I've shared. Some of them won't. Not everything, but we want to hear multiple opinions because that helps us become stronger, better people. We get to see things from more than one point of view. This is a good thing. So come on Monday, put it on your schedule. Again, not at noon this coming Monday, at 6:30. Did you have anything you wanted to say more about that, Amanda?
I don't think so. Did you get approval from Robin that it's okay we confiscate your Valentine's Day?
I haven't asked yet.
That's the large
But I'll be here. Maybe she'll be sitting right here next to me. No. Oh, she just heard me. I love it.
I would probably care less. He's like, great. We'll let them all do that.
I love it. All right, so put that on your calendar, you guys. 6:30, February 14th, a panel talking about how they do their own pricing. We'll be asking them questions. Some of them pretty tough questions, but they'll be giving you their real, right now opinions of the pricing, the different subjects about pricing. All right. Well, there she is right there. She's waving. I don't think. Yeah, you won't be able to see your hand. she's waving, but she couldn't get her hand close enough in to see it. All right. So if there's nothing else, Amanda, then I'll close this out. Thank you, Amanda, for all that you and your team are doing for us as photographers. It is greatly appreciated, and I encourage you guys, when you cross paths with Amanda and her team, let them know how much you appreciate what it is they do. I mean, they're going to continue to work hard no matter what, but doesn't it feel good when you get that recognition? Give it to them. They deserve it. Thanks, Amanda.
You're welcome.
So you guys, you sat through another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, and this time you got more of an insight on how I believe the pricing philosophy should be, and we talked about getting that perfect price list. Obviously easier said than done, but obviously I can help you with that kind of thing. I hope that this episode of the Portrait Profit Show has been beneficial to you and to your growth as a professional photographer. You have a lot of work to do to make everything work. And I hope you understand this is what I do. I help portrait photographers make it work. If you want to shave years off of what you do, I'm here for that. If you want to do trial and error like I do and spend 10 years trying to figure it out, be my guest. Whichever you feel is better. I help photographers reach their goals in a much shorter period of time than they would otherwise have done it. I love this stuff, both photography and the business side of photography. I've really come to love the business side. Who knew? Certainly didn't start off that way. And I love to share what I enjoy. I want you to be successful in your photography business, and I am here to help. It's what I'm passionate about. Thank you guys for being here for another episode of the Portrait Profit Show, and I hope to see you guys again soon. For Landers Photography School and Digital Pro Lab, this is Jim Landers bringing you the weekly Portrait Profit Show, giving you evolving content, awareness, and even fun to the business side of photography. We provide helpful information, step-by-step processes, how-to articles, and action steps that will help you with the struggles you deal with now so you are constantly realigned to the path that leads to the success you deserve. Bye-bye for now.